Hey, welcome to the latest episode of the PokePopCast. We're being joined today by Will Post, the infamous Will Post. If you're on Pokemon social media, you can't get away from him. He's moderator. Where are you a moderator at now?
I'm an admin for Burbank City, and otherwise I'm usually active in the other social media groups. I'm a moderator in the Pokemon Professor Roundtable group, active on Twitter. I am the admin for the Professor Discord. So, yeah, I have my hands on a lot of social media these days.
Cool. And of course, anytime somebody is opening packs, they used to tag you. I don't see that too much anymore.
They used to tag me, and it died off probably, I don't know, maybe six months or 9 months ago. I usually kind of track it mentally by set releases, and it peaked or it started to really take off around Breakpoint when Breakpoint came out, back when Greninja Break came out, and then it was pretty steady for a few years. Then it started to die off. I think as people realized that they could tag me for things other than for pack pulls, and they would get a good answer. People started tagging me for professor questions and card questions and moderator issues. So it started to trend away from meme tagging and into productive, useful, like I need some help tagging. So, which I'm okay with.
So it was kind of stealth marketing.
It was. It got my name out there, and then transitioned that name into something useful. So
yeah. Well, let's go back to the beginning. So, about when did you get involved in Pokemon trading card game, and how did that come about?
Sure. So my son came home from summer camp in summer 2014, which seems forever ago now. With Pokemon cards, and then he's kept wanting to buy more Pokemon cards, so we go over to the comic shop and just grab a booster pack here and there. And I hated the fact I was spending $4 on a booster pack at the time or whatever it was, because I was like, he's never going to use these. And I kept buying them, and eventually got to a point where I was like, all right, if you want to keep buying them, then we'll figure out how to play the game, because there's clearly a game associated with these cards. Like, they're clearly designing them with a game to be played in mind. I had no idea organized play was a thing. I just assumed I was going to find some rules online, and that they were distributing the card game, and that most people just collected them, and that was it. Like, that was the extent of it. So when I started doing some research,
was he then? Was he like first grade?
Oh, he was 6. No, was he 6? Yeah, he just turned 12, so he would have been 6 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So come like winter 2014, I started to kind of do a little more research, and I got some theme decks, and looked up and found there were leagues online. So we went and checked out League at the local another local card shop, and found out that there was a whole lot of people that actually play the game. So we learned, and then we went to in 2015 we went to a states tournament, Pennsylvania States, and he went 1-5. His only win was in the last round, where his opponent did not show. We didn't understand why the opponent didn't show. Like, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
But now I understand. Like, I understand why that happens after years of experience. But at the end of the tournament, after getting his butt handed to him all day, he told me he wanted to go and do it again. So that's sort of where the hook kind of got in. It was like he had a fun time playing Pokemon all day.
Was that run by Dorian, I guess?
It was, yeah, in the Days Inn basement there. So.
Right.
So yeah, that was our experience. Then we slowly, kind of got up. Actually, the next tournament we went to was not until your league challenge, right after Worlds. We were on our way to the shore, and you ran a league challenge at the church there, and you had some of the plastic like table covers from Worlds 2015 at the time as part of the prizing, and so that was the next tournament we went to.
I remember that. I got a stack of those.
Yeah.
They gave stacks of those to us to do what we will with, so I just used them at the next league challenge I had.
Yeah. Yep. So we stopped by there, and that was our first tournament for the San Francisco World Season, the 2016 World Season. We were on the way to the shore, and I was like, well, there's a league challenge here. Like, let's go check that out, because we need to start getting points. So yeah. Then since then, obviously I've gotten a lot more involved. I competed in a few tournaments here and there, and told Dorian at the time that I wasn't a big fan of sitting around at tournaments, because that's the Pennsylvania States that I went to and sat for 7 hours was not super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So I volunteered to help out at some of the cities, the following season, and then I judged at Pennsylvania and Delaware states that season, and sort of kind of started to get my feet wet. Played at a couple regionals that season. The 2016 season was really where we started to kind of get involved in the organized play system in a big way.
So did you get involved judging physically before you got involved online, or?
It went sort of hand in hand, because I like to chat on social media. I found Verbank shortly after Worlds 2015, and just sort of used it as a way to monitor what was going on and find some decks to play and do some stuff like that. And I played, like I said, I played at Pennsylvania, which was in Lancaster. I played at Lancaster Regionals and Virginia Regionals that year. So along the way, as I was kind of running my mouth in Burbank, not always in a productive way, I was meeting some of the community and sitting down with people and, getting to know some of them and chatting with them. The rise of that sort of went hand in hand. People started noticing they could tag me in their polls posts, and then I would come up, and it was really funny. So, yeah.
Right. Because they'd write, "Will post polls," and suddenly a link to your name is popping up.
Exactly. So they just tagged me in it, and I would go along with it after a while. I wish them luck, and So that 2016. By the time we got to Worlds in 2016, there were people who were seeking me out and asking to chat with me or take a picture with me in a pack of cards or different things, and it was definitely a weird feeling, but helped me feel really welcome in the community too. So
right. How did you transition into being the powerhouse media mogul judging great judge that you are? Because we've worked together a number of times, and you have really good you have a great balance of skills. You're great with players, the rules. You're good organizationally. How do you get from walking in, I thought this was just a card collection, to transitioning to where you're running or helping run some major stuff online, being able to do the things you're doing?
Just kind of a slow and steady process. As I kind of got more exposed to the community, I try to seek out people that I could learn things from. Obviously, when you look up how to judge, you'll find information on how to be a professor and joining the professor program. So I started there and started researching the material there and seeking out the supporting material like the compendium and the judge manual and things like that to sort of read through and get an idea of what would be expected of me as a judge. So I had taken that test, and as part of that, I got used to where the materials were, and where the links to the different websites were and where to find information. And as I was getting tagged in social media quite a bit, I would notice that, as I was scrolling through the group, there were a lot of people that didn't understand where to find the information that they were looking for, how to answer their questions. So I was like, well, I know where this stuff is, and I can put that information out there. And so I did, because it was at my fingertips and I had a second and I thought it'd be helpful. And so, so I did that. Like I said earlier, with getting into judging a little bit, I had talked to Dorian, at one of the states or one of the cities tournaments during the 2015 to 16 season, and said, hey, I went to a state, it was kind of boring sitting there. What can I do to help? So she had me help out at a couple cities, and then, a couple of states that year. And I got to know you a little bit. I got to work with Doug Morsoli quite a bit. Earl at the time, Earl Harris was another good guy I got to work with, who, you all had really good, solid heads in your shoulders. And, not only helped me to start to understand some of the card aspects of it, but kind of weave in that customer service aspect of working as a judge in the Pokemon community. And I came from a customer service background. I worked 7 years in restaurants growing up, and I work as an insurance agent now. So that spoke to me. That really, helped me kind of inspire my goal as a judge. I wanted to be a good judge, but I wanted to make sure that was mixed with being a really good people person.
Right.
It's entertainment for everybody in the room. It's their hobby, and not every interaction with a judge is going to go positively for both players at the table, but that doesn't mean that they still can't have a positive interaction with the judge, even if it's bad news. It doesn't mean it has to be a bad interaction too.
Right. No, yeah, I think that's an important point, that knowing the rulings is actually not the major point or skill needed to be a judge. It's those customer service skills, those people relation skills.
Right, right. And I think a lot of people miss that for wanting to be, subject matter experts on the rules and the compendium and things like that. And while those things are important, all of those things can be referenced at any time. But you can't teach somebody how to be. I mean, you can teach people how to be good with people, but it's a much harder skill to pick up and learn. You can't just read it off of a page and roll with it. So those two things sort of kept working with each other. I kept wanting to be a better judge so I could help people online and help them understand, how cards worked and the other questions they had about the organized play system. And that fueled my growth at regionals, because at regionals I wanted to, be a judge that people could count on, somebody that when I came up to the table, they knew, okay, like this ruling is going to be fair and accurate, even if it doesn't go my way, because I know this judge knows his stuff. I wanted that to be my reputation. And other organizers noticed, the first season I judged at a regional was the 16 to 17 season. The first regional I judged was Philadelphia regionals, the last one that was in the city. So that's where I got my feet wet. And then I reached out to some of the other organizers that year, for Fort Wayne and for St. Louis and for Virginia. And they were willing to bring me on because, a little bit because they had seen me, interacting online, and they heard decent things about how I'd done on staff. And so I used some networking skills to get myself out to some of the other regionals and work on staff there. And I think we went to a whopping 4 regionals that season, which felt crazy compared to the 2 we had done the last season. Right. My son qualified for Worlds that year by the skin of his teeth, because that was Anaheim was a tough year. The bar was high. That was the year that cups started to roll out. We missed a quarter of cups. So that was a tough year, but that's the first year I really got out on staff and got to know a lot of the other organizers. And so for people who are looking to get into that scene, and starting, I think, starting locally is important, interacting and, kind of networking with local judges and organizers. If you can find them now, they would be more like the cup organizers, different stores running cups, find folks who are running cups, help support them, find folks who are running cups but also travel to regionals and get to know them so that you can kind of pick their brain a little bit, right. And get to know them so that they can connect you with those organizers and put in a good word for you. But starting locally was really important. I can't imagine, just walking into a regional as my first experience and, just working as a judge. I mean, that would be a really intimidating experience. There's a higher level of expectations from the players about how their interaction with you is going to go. And there's a lot more on the line, there's 200 points and $5,000 on the line as opposed to 50 points in a playmat, at a league cup or like a league challenge, 15 points in a promo card. You can make a mistake at a league challenge and you're not going to break somebody's entire year or day. You can make a mistake at a regional and really impact somebody's chances at, walking away with a lot of points and money. And then after that season where I did a couple cities and states, the season afterwards is when I started to get out on the regional circuit. And actually I was lucky enough to be invited to judge at internationals that season too. So I got some experience there. And then the following season, 2017 to 18, is when I started getting opportunities to lead division, or not lead divisions. I wasn't a head judge that season yet, I don't think, but I got opportunities to be like an assistant head judge in a couple places, and was working a lot of cups locally, and was lucky enough to be invited to Worlds to judge that year. So it took a few years of experience to sort of work my way through and work up. And I know that's not everybody's goal. Not everybody wants to make it all the way to Worlds. Not everybody wants to be a lead or a head judge or anything like that. But for me, I mean, that was really important to me. I wanted to work my way up there. So, but it took time, it took work, and I was a martial artist growing up, so that all made sense to me. It took a lot of investment in martial arts, to rank up and to test for the next belt. So. Right. To me, they're analogous. You shouldn't expect to jump in and put on a black belt when you step onto the floor as a judge. You gotta start as a novice and learn the basics and build a good foundation and work your way up from there. So I was thankful that it took a season before I started regionals, and then a season after that before I was offered any, positions of authority at a regional. And even now, I'm not offered a position of authority at every regional I go to. And sometimes it's nice to step back and just be the floor guy,
Yeah.
Um, so
or you're doing a lot now. I see you working a lot, running the side events.
yeah, so the social media. What's that?
It would scare the hell out of me imagining running the side events because there's just so much going on there.
Yeah, they're chaotic, but the nice thing you have with side events is that they are fun, and that there's no decision of gravity on the line. There's really no problem in side events that you can't solve with a couple of extra packs. Which is completely different from working, the main tournament floor.
You're
Main
not ruling
tournament floor. Exactly. You're going to have rulings that are going to impact somebody's tournament run. They made a mistake and it can't be taken back, and they're going to lose a round. And, no matter how good you are, you're just going to have to issue that game loss. And, that's it. That person's day may be done. Whereas in side events, yeah, things get chaotic and there's a lot of people playing there and a lot of tables going at once. But, if somebody gets a little upset, just give them an extra side event ticket or a pack, and like their day is fine. They're like, okay, cool. I had a kid crying at one tournament who I gave a VGC hat to, which for those of us who work in tournaments, we know that the VGC hats, they pile up after a little while and they don't end up being the most popular item. And man, he was beaming the rest of the day. He was stoked. He got a hat, and it was that easy. So
which hat is that?
It's the Nashville staff hat.
Nashville, yeah, okay, cool. And you got the Washington.
The Evie hoodie from DC, yeah.
Show the back for people who haven't seen the back of that. This is like the best jacket they've ever given.
Let's see. Does it show well? I can't tell. Oh gosh, yeah, I got the chair
blocking it. There you go.
Does that work?
There's the Evie.
Yeah. So I did like the jacket more than the hat for the DC year, but don't tell anyone that.
Yeah. That's a cool jacket.
Yeah. So yeah, my involvement with social media and my community building is what caught the attention of one of the organizers, and had her decide to put me in as a sides lead. And we tested it out in Charlotte a couple of years ago, and she liked having me on board for that. So so I travel around for her tournaments and usually work as sides lead for her, and that's fun. It's a good shift. I like the chaos of sides, because like I said, combined with the fact that there's not a lot of gravity to it, it tends to be just fun to manage from start to finish. Even though there are moments there where I'm panicking because I need staff for the main event, but the main event needs staff for the main event.
That's always the balance. It's you always need more staff than you, or seems like you need more staff than you have, but
exactly. But it gives me a chance to interact with players that are really there. Yeah, exactly. But then, in those moments I get to get on the front lines and, hang out with the players playing sides, and they're all just there to have a good time, and it's a different experience. So I like it a lot. And it's a good balance.
Let's see. All right. So let's talk a bit about let's move into the social media world, since we've touched on it a bit. And you were saying how you found Verbank. So back in the day when I started, PokeGym was the website, and things basically transitioned with the rise of Facebook and social media. It's kind of interesting for the trading card game. Things transitioned pretty much to Facebook, whereas for the video game, things are mostly on Twitter.
That's right. Yeah.
So Facebook and other social media platforms, and things kind of transitioned over. So when you got involved, Verbank City was, and I guess there was Hayfont too. I don't know if you found Hayfont originally or how that.
At the time, there was an original Hayfont that got renamed to Verbank, and the new Hayfont had not been created yet. So the only thing at the time was Verbank City, the only major thing.
And it's still is. Yeah.
Right.
It's good for there to be a central place where most of the community can come together.
Right. And I agree with that. And I enjoy the community that Verbank has, and I understand, there are community members that, kind of stepped off and formed a more competitive group, and that's fine. Not everybody wants to discuss the TCG from like a fan standpoint. They're really only playing because they want to win. They want to be successful. So I get that. But I do like that there's still a kind of central core group where people can just chatter about a card art they like, or ask about the value of something, or talk competitive Pokemon, or do whatever they want. And I enjoy the feedback I get from the other, the other competitive groups, and, kind of monitoring from them, like, okay, what is doing well? What things are people tweaking to make decks better? Because that gives me a better perspective as a judge anyway, because then I can get an idea of, like, okay, what cards do I need to be specifically focused on? What interactions do I need to research and be aware of, be on top of, for the next tournament? What cards am I going to see? Because we're never going to see every card that gets printed at a tournament, at least not at the top tables.
Right.
So it's good to have that pulse on what's being played, so that I can improve as a judge. So
right, you get the occasional question of, what if this convoluted thing happens? It's like, we're never going to.
Oh my gosh, especially when an expanded tournament comes up, the questions that I see come up. I mean, I love thinking about them because they're good case studies, and they keep my judge brain, kind of moving in the right direction. And but yeah, I'm like, nah, nobody's ever going to have, like, this is a problem that's never going to come up. Like, it's just never going to happen. So yeah.
Yeah, let's not break our brains.
Right.
Testing our brains, okay, but let's not break them.
Right. But yeah, the social media is neat. And I mean, Facebook is an okay platform for it. Obviously everybody's out there. I think there's some weaknesses to it, and there's some geographical segmentation. It can be challenging to go from one area to another if you're a Pokemon player, to try to find, like, events, and information in other areas, because they're a little regional subgroups. But usually somebody can link you to stuff in Burbank. And I've been happy in the past couple of years that some of that social media that the large community has kind of transitioned over to being social media that professors have access to. The professor roundtable group was a cool idea, not my idea, but something I offered to help moderate, since I have a little bit of experience with that now. It's nice to have a place where people can post and feel somewhat safe that their questions are only going to be viewed and responded to by professors. And that way they don't have to put themselves out there to the broader player base as somebody who's still seeking information, because even with the best intentions, that can color the way players feel about you, and that's uncomfortable both ways. So it's nice to have that safe zone there.
So with that existing, how did it come about then that you guys decided to create this Discord channel? What attraction was there for doing that versus just using that roundtable that you're talking about?
My idea with the Discord.
And by the way, for those watching, we'll put links to the different things. The professor social media, you generally have to be invited into by showing that you are really a professor, because, as Will points out, that they're a safe space for professors to ask questions without having to worry about the general public looking and saying, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about." So we generally they're generally keeping those to if you are a professor and you haven't known about these things, we'll put the link, but you just know you have to get approved to get into them.
Definitely. So the Discord's funny. I a lot of weekends, especially when Cup started coming about, there would be a lot of weekends where my messenger would blow up, where I'd get judges from around the country who would reach out to me, and because they knew my name from Burbank or the Roundtable, which I can't remember which came first. I think it was the Roundtable came first, but they would know my name because it's an easy name to remember, and they would message me and say, "Hey, like, I have this situation at a Cup, here's the card, or here's the situation, or here's what Tom is doing, and how do I solve it?" And, while I'm somewhat available, I also do have 2 young children at home. And if I'm not at a tournament on a weekend, I'm usually doing something else with them. And I couldn't always answer quickly. It got to a point where I was like, okay, either I'm busy sometimes or I don't have answers. And I'm a huge believer in a consistent player experience for everyone. And I thought, okay, like, what platform is out there where people can get answers from each other a little more quickly than posting on Facebook and waiting for somebody to notice and comment? Because it was either that or people would, have professors on dial. Like, I've called Vince, for example, before with issues that were highly specific, and because I have his phone number. But if you've never been to a regional, you don't have other, professors' phone numbers.
Right.
And having to go down a phone tree to get a problem solved seemed really inefficient. So I'm doing some research and having played around on the platforms, it seemed like Discord which I know you've commented on in the past, feels like almost like a technological regression. You know, it looks really simple. It's another chat room. It feels like IRC, you know, or the old AOL chat rooms. But yeah, but it's got some. I mean, it's got some more sophisticated features than they used to. But it seemed like that was a good place to go because they've got a desktop platform, a mobile platform, you know, tagging, roles, you know, ways to get people's attention. So I turned to that because I wanted to pull a bunch of people together so that if I'm a random professor somewhere, I can jump into the Discord and tag a thing, and anybody who's around can answer a question and get that person the information they need. So that way, their local tournament gets two benefits. Their ruling is consistent with the way the game wants it ruled, you know, rather than their interpretation of the rules, which may or may not be correct. Which again is fine. I'm not speaking down about anybody. If you haven't had the benefit of exposure to other experienced professors, you're just going to do the best you can, and that's all we can hope for sometimes. But if there's a better way, we should embrace it. And also so that they can get their players and their tournaments moving faster, so that they can get, you know, if the tournament's held up by one ruling, that's not fair to anybody there. And if they can get the answer to that question faster, then that's great for everyone involved. So that's what had me turn to the Discord originally, was really because I would get questions and I couldn't answer all of them fast enough, and I felt bad. And I was like, okay, how can I make this process more efficient and eliminate the need for somebody to have been at a regional to have a connection with professors? And you know, now we're a little over 2 years into the Discord now. We just topped 1,000 members this year, which is really cool to me. I mean, I remember thinking when we got to 100, that was really neat. And then, you know, 500 was cool. Now we're over 1,000. I see names in the Professor Discord every day of people that I've not met yet. You know, or at least but I'm familiar with their names now through Discord. And I really like that I can network and interface with them and chat with them and just kind of get to know who they are through there. And I like that they have that resource of people who are very experienced like yourself. And, you know, we have other stage 2 professors in there who have been judging since the dawn of time as far as Pokemon is concerned, and they'll chime in with things. And, you know, the folks who are kind of in the middle ground of experience are gaining confidence and answer questions. And I like that. I think it's been a really positive experience for me, you know, as an admin for that server, and for a lot of the folks in there who didn't have a network before. So yeah, and it's
yeah, well, I'm for whatever works, and this is definitely working. I mean, you definitely see the interactions that judges get to have, and like you say, you know, when you have that immediate need, and you know, people are able to jump on, you know, ask a question, and boom, within minutes or seconds, they're getting an answer. So I mean, that's really cool.
right.
And what's really great now, and we haven't gotten to talk about it too much, was with what's going on now with everyone being home with COVID, and tournaments being put on hold. The opportunity for judges to really participate in a lot of online seminars that you got at the range. How did that come about?
So Jen Badamo, who has a lot of experience professionally doing online training, brought the idea to TPCI and said, you know, hey, you know, this is something I do professionally. Do we want to roll out the seminar series online while professors are all home? And you know, they agreed to work with us and put that stuff together, and even put professor points, you know, in the pot for everyone. And you know, we all agreed it was kind of a safe and secure area, which I think has been one of the bigger concerns, is that, you know, some of the seminars be potentially accessed by people who are not professors for various reasons. You know, but decided it was a secure enough space to, you know, to arrange that, and that the functionality of Discord was enough that, you know, we could stream the content out to 50 or so professors at a time, and they could ask questions in the chat. And it was just a really nice encapsulated way to distribute that content without fear of it, you know, being misinterpreted or be out in public spaces, which is cool. And so, yeah, they worked with us. We're now trying to adapt it so that it can be something that can continue through, you know, coming back to whatever normal is when we're back to normal.
Because a lot of people just don't have the opportunity to travel as much. Most of the, you know, even me personally, most of the events I've been able to go to, very few have had seminars at them. Uh,
Right.
and so, I've been jumping on this opportunity to take a lot of these seminars because I just haven't really had a chance to hear a lot of these people talk before.
Right. And for me, I mean, a lot of the times when I travel to tournaments, I have my son has attendance restrictions, with school, and I have, only a certain amount of paid time off. And a lot of those seminars happen, maybe in the early afternoon on Friday before the tournament, where I might be arriving late, late on Friday. I mean, I've had times where I haven't gotten on a flight till 7 o'clock at night, after I'm done with work and my son is done with school, to fly out to a tournament. So even, for me in that situation where geographical access was not the limiting factor, I still, it was just timing. Like I couldn't justify taking a day off for an hour of education. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm all about getting more people more information, and the fact that this isn't gate kept at all by the ability to attend a regional is fantastic. We've had people from all over the world sitting in on seminars together. Folks that I know have never attended a seminar in person and may have never attended a regional are now getting the same information that we're all getting, when we're able to travel to a tournament. And that's a win for the game. I mean, going back to what I said earlier, I'm a huge believer in a consistent player experience. And the only way to get that is to make sure that the professors who are running tournaments and volunteering to, be the point of knowledge for people, if they're getting consistent education too, because otherwise you get those weird stories like, well, hey, the judge in East Nowhere, Arkansas, said this thing, and that's not consistent with what you're telling me. That's a problem. So I like that we're able to reduce that with this platform. So, and I'm looking forward to continuing the online education, as time goes forward. I think we'll kind of alternate things between seminar weekends and live activity weekends, and, sort of the you are the head judge activity, which allows people to weigh in sort of blindly at first, where they can give their opinion, but that won't be influenced by how other people have answered, and then people can compare their answers. And I think that's been really cool. We put that on hold during this time because we had so many live seminars, but that's been a fun activity too, to kind of see how people start with certain opinions, and then when they see, when they start discussing things, both sides kind of meet in the middle on the way to handle certain situations. And it helps professors understand that, even though we have penalty guidelines, and some situations can be very complicated and open to interpretation, and that there's a learning process involved with all of those, even for those of us who have ruled, at all levels of the game and have had these situations for years. Not every situation is easy to unravel at first glance. So it's been fun
one
watching
of those.
working those.
One of those I participated in. I changed my mind on how I should have handled something.
Yeah. I think I remember that one because I think I was the same boat.
Okay, well, let's see. We're running close to the end of your time here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
One of the important things on social media is a lot of people, and the way it used to be back in the day was if something happened at a tournament, that's something organized play got involved in. If it happened outside of a tournament, organized play didn't get involved because it was outside of what they felt was what they could handle. That's not really the case anymore with social media. Do you want to talk about a bit about it, or do you want me to do any lead into it?
I can chat about it a little bit, and if you feel like I'm, going the wrong direction, feel free to correct the course there. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember when it came out originally, but recently the company published, and I'm looking at it on my other screen here, an equality, equity, diversity, and inclusivity policy. And to sum it up, I mean, it basically promotes the idea that Pokemon is, welcoming of diversity and equality and equity between players, and is not going to anything that, kind of interrupts that goal. And that extends out into the social media environment and the community. I mean, Pokemon wants players to feel safe when interacting with the game. And while it's obvious that they want people to be safe, at tournaments, it now extends out into the social media environment surrounding those tournaments. But yeah, it's, they've recently made it clear that your actions on social media, your actions, outside of the game, the things you're saying, those are being watched as well. And if those things are making other communities feel unsafe, or other players in the game feel unsafe, that the they're going to act on that.
Well, let me just clarify on that. In the documents, Pokemon makes it clear that they're not watching, but if somebody brings something to their attention,
Right.
then so they're not like Big Brother. But if somebody is doing something that is disturbing other people and is brought to their attention, then they can and will act on that.
Exactly. Yeah. And for those of you who aren't familiar with, how to bring something to their attention, you'll become familiar with it because they get referenced a lot. But you can go to the support ticket system on the Pokemon website, which I'm sure you'll be able to link in the documents as well. It's support.pokemon.com, so it's really easy anyway. But anytime somebody has a concern, I mean, they should share that information there with screenshots. I know that even this week, I mean, there was something in the TCG last week. I don't know when this will air, but there was something in video game as recently as yesterday on Twitter, and that stuff is getting reported. And I think that's good because this should be a healthy, safe, approachable environment that's fair for everyone to play in. One of my favorite things has been that the community is very diverse and welcoming. I now have friends all over the world because of Pokemon of various backgrounds and various beliefs and various orientations, and we all connect because we love Pokemon, and I don't want that to be an unsafe space for any of them, even for those who I disagree with. I like that we can set aside the disagreements and work through a day of Pokemon and have a good time together.
Right.
And then even afterwards interact fairly and equitably with each other online about stuff that we disagree with. So that should be maintained. I'm a firm believer in the policy, and so
just to put it here, I'll put links here in the player resources. And really, if you're playing in the Pokemon trading card game or working as staff in the Pokemon trading card game, you really should be familiar with all of the documents that Pokemon has published because you're agreeing to them by participating in the program. You're agreeing to all these things, and as Will mentioned, a couple of documents that they put out recently where equality, the statement on equality and equity, and basically how to treat people, and of course the spirit of the game that's been around longer, but it's been kind of expanded on. So I'll link to both of these documents here, but all players should read them. And as Will was saying, you're expected to adhere to them in your treatment of people. And
right, and really anything connected to Pokemon, even if it's in message like group messages, group chats, anything. If you have opinions that would be considered in violation of that policy, should probably be kept to yourself. I'm not going to dictate what people should believe, but we're all adults, or many of us are adults. I know that we got kids playing the game, but those of us in the professor community are all adults. We should all know how to treat other folks in our community, and know where to draw the line about what's fair and what's aggressive and abusive to other members of the community. So, as professors, I would definitely strongly encourage folks to be familiar with the document and not really tolerate anything in violation of that document, and make sure that information gets shared with Pokemon so that we can continue to maintain a safe space for everybody who's playing the game.
Right. Well, and that's really it, because we want people to participate in organized play. Pokemon wants people to participate in organized play, and if people feel uncomfortable because they don't feel welcome, because for whatever reason some people have it out for them,
right,
that's not good for the game.
Right, exactly. So definitely good to highlight on, and something that is newer to the game, the inclusivity document, although I think it's been around for a little while now, but relatively new in the history of documents that are published, and still something that people are working on being familiar with and being aware that's there. So
right, yeah. So I guess that's a good. You have to get going now, right? So
I do, yeah.
Okay, so I want to thank Will Post for spending some time with us. Hopefully, we've discussed some things that are of interest to people. And once things get back to normal, look for Will either judging on the floor or running side events, and say hi to him and have him bless your polls.
Definitely. Please do that. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It was fun to chat.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care, Will.
All right. Yeah, you too.